Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe. Here's my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
And here's a video I actually had completely forgotten we had promised to make because I forgot about Council of the Rings, a friend of the channel's, and he's a much larger channel than ours, our humble one. He had vowed to make his own Rings of Power kind of series of videos, and we had promised to review them as part of our epic fantasy reviews and help him market his stuff. Due to respect for his channel, we can't show everything of his video, but we can show a great deal, and we're going to be doing also a first reaction. I've honestly never seen this video before. Neither has Dan.
Nope.
So here we go. Hopefully this will be entertaining. Hopefully. The art looks great. But art is a strong suit of Council of the Rings channel.
Can't deny that.
I mean, just look at this. Let's just watch.
And foes of Middle-earth, and welcome back. And welcome to my own take on how a TV series about the Second Age should be like. Before we begin,
It's almost like
I should talk a little about what this series is going to be like. First, I highly recommend you to pause here and watch the intro video if you haven't watched it yet, and then come back here. The most powerful of the Ainur, in his pride, broke the harmony, where he decided to increase the power and glory of the part assigned to him. Much of the evil in the world was created in the discord of Melkor. Strife arose among Melkor.
Real quick, just going to plug. The Discord page is really good. The Discord of Melkor. Just saying, there is a Discord called that, and a lot of the Tolkien-tubers hang out there.
And the other Valar. And for that time, Melkor withdrew and departed to other regions, and did there what he would. But he did not put the desire for the kingdoms of Arda from his heart. Melkor built his fortress in the far north of the world, and in the dark pits he created many foul beings never seen before. He is as much in you as in me, Aldarion interrupts. I've learned it from the best. And yet, I see the tenderness of your mother. Then Tua stands up and walks a few steps from the table and looks at the moonlit water. Beware of the sea, Aldarion. It has a way of swallowing men and their dreams. Then Tua turns back and faces Aldarion. Are you sure that you truly want to go to Middle-earth? Hope of your return. But do not become enamored with the great lands, Aldarion. You who one day must be king and father of this isle. Thank you, father. I remember your wise words as I behold the havens of the Eldar and greet the High King from you. Aldarion bows.
The words are already forgotten. No, just that sentence. I shall not forget your words. Even as I go to greet everyone in those lands, and he's obsessing about those lands already.
What words was he talking about?
I couldn't tell you. Showing his interest is a good touch here. It would have made a great scene.
Grant him this leave, and he surely will return a better man, suited to become king one day. He needs to let go of the sea. He is no different than my father.
Okay, here, this is partially correct. And the trouble is, Aldarion was a spoilt son, given everything so that he never questioned that he had the right to everything he wanted. The sea, oh, well, just give him this one boon. Surely nothing will go foul of giving him everything he asks for. Overall, this scene is showing really bad parenting, in that Menelder's first instinct to say no to his son is actually the correct one. But the trouble is, Menelder in the actual story of the Mariner's Wife never really disciplines his son. And his wife doesn't really push him to discipline him too much. She just takes the stance, maybe a wife will help cure Aldarion of his being Aldarion. But, of course, this sort of solution is foolish in the most extreme, and only exacerbates Aldarion's pre-existing flaws.
Cannot take away this
So that he just ends up having a disastrous marriage.
sea from him. I fear he is very different from myself. He loves the sea, just as you love the stars. You're not so different as you think. Let him be young for now. She takes Menelder's hand and places it upon her belly. Have you thought of a name yet?
Okay, they're worlds apart. Menelder, it was duty, 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 despite his love for the stars and his strong dislike for the kingship. He actually wanted to pass over the crown, but essentially he wasn't able to. With Aldarion, on the other hand, having very little love for duty and scorning it at times, and not stepping into the role of, was a good foreign minister, but even as king, he didn't step into the role of kingship for a long time. And at the first chance that he had, when his daughter came of age, he was to dump on her the role of regent so he could go back to playing at sea. And I do say the word playing because Aldarion was never really a man to take adult responsibility. It's always play time with him.
And we see here, essentially, the seeds of Golden Child Idas.
Mm-hmm.
And excuses. Oh, he's young now, let him be young.
Yeah.
And this problem that eventually balloons into
destroying Numenor in a way, almost 2,500 years later. I'm just saying, because it's from Aldarion that the shadow creeps into Numenor, and we begin to see darkness overtake it. Because Menelder and his wife could not quite discipline their son. They could not bring themselves to do it when they ought to have. The notion of Aldarion journaling and chronicling his adventures is a nod to what sailors did historically. They were to chronicle and note down every detail of their travels in journals they carried with them. The joke of Star Trek is Captain's Log, but this was an actual thing. You had Mariner's Logs, you have Lighthouse Keeper logs, you have thousands upon thousands of texts written by these sort of men. And this serves the practical purpose of offering knowledge for anyone who knows how to skim through them of what they saw, their time period, their lives, everything. But at the same time, it also offers them the useful purpose of not having to remember every detail so that they could just refer back to it and note. So here, our friend here is referencing an actual historical practice.
Mena. The seagulls accompany the ship as it sails east. Here we get a minor scene where we are introduced to the three companions on board the ship, Woronwe, Ulbar, and Henderk. I could go into detail, but it's not that important. It could in theory be something like we see in the Rings of Power, though I think it's important that we hear the names of the characters. Ventur shows up and gives them some chores to do. Ventur and Aldarion both look back on Numenor. You must be the one they call Kid in the shipwright. But forgive me, you speak as if you were expecting our arrival. I have the gift of foresight, though some might consider it a curse. Long have I waited the day where you...
Right here, this is clunky. I'm just saying. Him introducing the gift of foresight at our first meeting with him, I actually don't like that sort of thing in television. I hate it when they do that. Because then it's like, okay, I don't have a personality. I have a gift, though, or something I can do. I don't have the personality to, though. And I know this is not Council of the Rings' goal, but it's just, for me, it makes me bristle a little. I don't like it when stories do this. Don't tell me what the character can do on a first meeting. Show me what they can do over the course of time or at that first meeting. And I know this is kind of a show, given that, he showed that he's been waiting for Aldarion for a long time. And I was about to call him Tar Aldarion. He's not yet king. But it's not the sort of greeting I like in a show. I've seen this a million times and I don't like it.
I mean, sure, there's a cliche, an old man has his ways.
Yeah, that phrase I like. And I think that would work better here for the dialogue. Like, an old man has his ways. And he says it with a twinkle in his eye. And you get a hint of mischief there. That could have introduced him as a kind of Qui-Gon Jinn style character. Okay, I kind of feel like right here in the middle, when he's sailing to the Grey Havens, we probably should have had at least one sea adventure, so that we don't know why Eldarion is attached to the sea or what excitement it has for him. Well, he sailed through storm and whatnot. Yeah, but there's not been a danger, like that first inciting force, so to speak, in this episode. And I think that there should have been something, I don't know, maybe a brief encounter of a kraken or a sea dragon or anything. And where it's not a major encounter, there's a minor one. It nearly turns over the ship. The sailors have to work together, and Eldarion forms friendships and bromances, and the men rally and save each other, with Eldarion proving himself a bit of a hero of the hour, and the beast fading to the side, and then later, maybe an episode like 6 or 7 or something, you bring it back at the worst possible moment. And so we would get to see that Eldarion is more than just a spoiled brat. But here, yeah, he is just a spoiled brat, but here he's, I don't know, like, it just feels a little uneventful so far. Not to be too harsh.
Surely the time has come to talk of more urgent matters. And what matters would those be, Lady Galadriel? We are in need of allies.
Okay,
as I've
this
said
is
in the
really
past.
jarring. He's using art to show the other characters, but showing Galadriel from the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies. I would like it if it would... I know it's weird, but it's so jarring to see one character in live action form and the rest in art form. Stick with one and, go with one and stick to it. Don't go with both.
Would have been nice to see an artist impression of Galadriel.
Yeah, we've actually got someone who did Galadriel for us, and you'll be seeing that art in our upcoming walkthrough of the Lord of the Rings movie. And so there are some impressive artists who do great work for Galadriel as a character. So
Elrond sits with a silver harp and plays a lament for the fallen of the third kinslaying. O Céred Uduler in Elath, O la Sahili sa Ilonath, I Cuinet Udunge o Neras, A Cuinat Vilas Amiveras, Bernawa a Ivestad Afana, Anuirit Equestat Ananga, Cisirion Iemu Iherkat, Minir an Ivir a Inakat. Your visitors, my friend. Elrond puts down his silver harp and turns around. This is Elrond, half-elven, one of our most skilled lawmasters and healers in Lindon. He is the twin brother to your ancestor. Oddly enough, I already know. Welcome to Grey Havens.
And we're jarred again. We've got two characters that are being borrowed from the movies and contrasted with the art. This is even more jarring now. It's just like
artist impressions, please.
Yeah, because the
name do you go?
Art.
Well, I was given the name.
This is a popular image for a lot of fantasy characters. This is one that's been used and reused for how many? I think I've seen a video where it was used for Arthas. I've seen it used for Game of Thrones characters and whatnot. It's a great piece of work. Use this. Don't jump between them. It's like jumping between classical music and heavy metal, so that I'm just left feeling confused, jarred, and wearied. And I am enjoying this video, but this sort of jump, hyper leap between two different art forms, confuses my brain, and it is giving me a bit of a headache, just because this is something I strongly dislike.
Not ill at birth, but I go by the name Eldarion these days. Then welcome, Eldarion, to my humble home. I assume you have been sent by the king. What can I do for you? I believe the king had in mind to answer some questions. He then bows and leaves them. Questions? What questions? I would like to learn as much as I can while I'm here. I've even brought my own book to take notes. I may never return to these lands if my father wills it. I want to know everything and understand this world. There are so many things I don't know that nobody on Numenor knows. Well, I shall do what I can, but not all questions are in need of answers. What would you like to know first? Well, there's one thing nobody talks about on Numenor. Could you tell me what you know about the war? Hope, you say. I see little hope in men. Men are weak and easily corrupted. I am afraid that the Numenorians are not as brave as their ancestors that fought beside us. Since the war, they have given up their swords, and there's not a single man among them now that has ever seen combat. Do not so easily discard friendship with the men of Numenor. We are in need of allies. Perhaps not all need to excel on the battlefield. Perhaps not, but we are in need of allies that can fight by our side. I have to agree with Galadriel. All the elves look at Círdan that enters the hall and takes his seat. Know you have your doubts, your majesty.
The transition was sudden here. I was confused for a minute, going, wait, is Aldarion talking now with Gil-galad? Why is Gil-galad bad-mouthing humans now? As for Gil-galad, him bad-mouthing humans here, I'm not entirely keen on, but I hope there's a reference to Turin-Turambar later, and how Turin-Turambar may have brought down Orodreth, whom was Gil-galad's dad, and that this sort of thing kind of colors his view. That said, if he goes with the Fingon as the father of Gil-galad, that line about humans will not make any sense, character-wise and psychologically, as Gil-galad will have never really suffered personally to the corruption of man. Whereas if it's Orodreth, because Turin-Turambar gave really bad advice and caused the destruction of Nargothrond, it would mean that Gil-galad has a personal dog in this fight, so to speak.
See, but I'm more certain now than ever that we are in need of this Numenorian. I trust your wisdom, Círdan. It has never failed to prove the wisest of roads.
Okay, real quick. Gil-galad was, I think with the Orodreth version, sent off to the Grey Havens to be raised there as the foster son of Círdan the Shipwright. Which is why Círdan is essentially here the right-hand man of Gil-galad. That said, I didn't see his breakdown of what he would do or wouldn't do. I didn't have time to check that out in the during the holidays. So, if he's going with Fingon, I'm not sure of all the details regarding the Fingon Gil-galad version of events, as you have almost two separate versions of the early years of Gil-galad, to an extent, at least from what I've observed. I prefer Orodreth because that's what I started with and found all across the Children of Húrin story, the Silmarillion, and whatnot. And I prefer the officially published version and have the attitude, no backsies on the lore within the Silmarillion, unless you're going to take it out and make a new edition. You know, like, if by the 4th edition, let's say it was stated in the 3rd edition it was Fingon, then the 4th edition you switch to Orodreth, no, it has to be Fingon, because up to the, or at least you can switch it over to Orodreth, actually, I mean, and yeah, Orodreth or Fingon is no longer the dad, it's the other one. So let's say, okay, sorry, I got myself confused for a minute. Let's say in edition number 2 it said Fingon, but then you switched over to Orodreth in edition 3. Edition 3 counts as the canon up until edition number 4 of the Silmarillion comes out. At least that's my attitude. So, yeah, and most of the editions I've read have had Orodreth, so I just go with that.
And yet there is doubt in my heart. Men do not look beyond the years of their own time, and we do not know when this evil will strike. I am not sure if we can trust the Numenorians fully. I sense a great conflict within them, and I will not walk in the footsteps of my father and blindly trust the will of men. That is not how this kingdom will fall. Do not blame the
Okay, right there. Yeah, he just confirmed Orodreth. Orodreth risked all on the bet of humanity and men, and it brought down his kingdom of Nargothrond. So, Gil-galad there saying, I'm not going to make that same mistake, is kind of interesting. So what he's doing is he's setting up Gil-galad as being mistrustful of humans, then later he's going to learn to trust them. So that his bromance with Elendil is something of the end goal in the story, to an extent.
Let us not forget Menegroth and what befell...
Orofer being there, I'm not sure about, because Orofer, I'm pretty sure, was father to Thranduil, and Orofer refused to listen to the orders and the commands of Gil-galad and refused to recognize him as High King. So why would he stand in court before him? So I'm just a little confused here and unhappy with this a little.
King Thingol. But maybe Celebrimbo here can tell us more about that. I am not my father, nor my grandfather. Why am I to blame for their mistakes? I did not come...
Where did that come from? Okay, that dialogue is weird. There was no aspersions about dad and grandpa cast there. It was just about dwarves. So I'm a little confused here with this line. It should have been clarified there. Or they should have made it should have been explicitly stated about Curufin and Feanor.
Commit any crimes? Oh, did you not? Where were you in all of this? Enough. Not yet. It is not negotiable. We set sail today. Then you must chain me to the mast of the ship. Atharion, it is time to go home. Do not force me to take you with me. You know very well we cannot return without you. I simply cannot. And what about you, brave mariners, sons of Numenor? Do you want to turn home? Are we so different, you and I? Do your hearts not long to explore and see more of these fair and strange lands? Do you truly want to return home to the ports you have seen 100 times? Or do you want to follow me to the unknown corners of the world?
Here, this is an interesting speech. Grandfather's scolding grandson for being spoiled and basically doing the 4-year-old thing of, I don't want to go thing. But this is much more insidious and dangerous because his grandfather is trying to reason with him and treat him like his grandson. And Aldarion is now turning to the crew, giving a speech that reminds me of Alexander the Great's sort of speech. He's basically calling for a mutiny against his own grandfather. So
he's forgetting responsibility.
But more than that, he's showing that blood means nothing to him. This is a very cold-blooded scene, and I really like it. This being in the first episode or the second episode or something, I would love that. That fits the character. I do agree with it. Council of the Rings is wise to put this here. I do think there should have been at least one adventure in between. And I know I'm not trying to turn this into an action-adventure thing like Peter Jackson. But I do think we should have seen some sort of... The thing is, this is supposed to be essentially the Odyssey when it comes to Aldarion. Tolkien never filled out his adventures, but we are supposed to get the impression of the Odyssey, of Odysseus at sea, or the Aeneid. That said, this is a great scene, and it's showing a very marked coldness in Aldarion.
To see the lands no Numenorian or elf has ever seen before. To go where none have gone before. And beyond that, if courage prevails, son of Tar Elendil, we shall return. It will not be the last time the Numenorians set foot in Middle-earth. I promise you that, grandfather.
Well, I think he did a great job with the voice acting for the most part.
You have a beautiful voice.
Yeah.
Been a few things you missed, so I highly recommend you to watch that as well. It will come out before the lore breakdown, so expect a minor delay before the lore breakdown comes out. The first episode in any show is rarely the most exciting one, but it establishes some of the key elements of the story. Who are the protagonists and who's the antagonist? We've also met some of the most important characters throughout this.
Yeah, okay. His intro in the middle of the characters introducing themselves and whatnot and debating politics, I do like. I just think near the beginning you should have had... Okay, so we don't know why these mariners are attached to Aldarion. Why would they care? Why would they like him? So I think that we should have had a beginning scene around here in order to of danger at sea, where Aldarion earns the loyalty and respect of the men, and even their love to an extent.
And that could also help endear him to the audience.
Showing him as a brave young man.
So when his fall goes on,
or like at least when we see his darker nature towards his wife and the worst custody battle in Arda's history and his clash with his dad, we could see the differences between now and then show. But overall, this is
The seasons.
thing. Leave a quick like, because why not? I may leave a comment later. But overall, tell us what you think of this video. Oh, but before that, I just remembered, we should rate this. Now we normally rate between 0 and 4. 0 being beyond the pall. 4 being perfect or beyond perfection. And the thing is, I'm actually going to say the trouble is this transition. Maybe I'm weird, but the transition between realism and art, I don't like it in any show or adaptation or something. If you jump too quick, I find it gives me a headache, as my eyes are adjusting to looking at one kind of thing, and to suddenly jerk me out of that and into something else always gives me a headache.
it breaks immersion.
I guess, but it's just, I guess my eyes are oversensitive, and so it kind of confuses me on an unconscious level. So I actually hate that. And I'll actually say, if you ever watches this video, please go with pure art rendition for Galadriel and Elrond, because while Cate Blanchett does look great, but the problem is this transition is confusing, and it's a little difficult for some such as myself, at least in my opinion. I don't know if I'm the odd man out.
I found it rather distracting.
Yeah, I noticed you were kind of... Yeah. Well, as far as the art of the various characters, I really do like. Menelder looks great. Tarlendil was a good choice. That said, the various character images and whatnot, where I like the little box here and then the dialogue. This reminds me of Sukoden in a positive way.
And
It allows us to focus on the art. Okay, well, this is obviously taken from Lord of the Rings, with Gandalf standing right there, which is so bizarre. Anyways, but you have, where is it? For example, here, oh, whoops, wrong choice. I meant to choose here. You have here, it looks great, and you have a good view of something that does not look entirely real, yet it looks surreal and fantastical, which is important. And so, yeah, like, the art is well chosen, and I like how you have the box, the Gil-galad art. I really love this art of Gil-galad. That said, just that scene where there seems to be a perceived insult from Orifer to Celebrimbor confused me, because it went from they were talking about dwarves to now it's an insult against Celebrimbor for reasons that are beyond me. So, alors, j'ai juste comme, what? I think there it should be made more obvious. That there's an implied insult and slight and a reminder to Feanor and Curufin. That said, now to rate, how would you rate this?
as is most first episodes, I'd probably rate it a good 2.5. We've got a lot of setup. There are faults like the artwork.
Well, not the artwork, but like the jarring move,
Yeah,
the transition between
the transition. We have the missing sailing adventure or mini adventure. Otherwise, I like a lot of the
setup.
setup. We meet the primary characters in a well thought out, intelligent way. And I can't help but say, beautiful voice.
Yeah. I'm going to rate it a 2. It's mediocre. And the thing is, 2 is perfectly between 0 and 4. And so I'm not quite as taken with it as you are, I imagine. That said, there is quite a bit I do like. I do really like this middle meeting. Gil-galad holding court, in a way. So that we do get the knowledge that though Elrond's not present for this meeting, Elrond has the role of distracting Eldarion, and the mariners will be distracted elsewhere, so that Gil-galad can withdraw into his court and do what kings do. That is to say, hold court in private with their secret council, so to speak, or the Privy Council. That said, I'm not sure how lore accurate it is that Orifer would be there. He, I don't think, was the sort to really want to answer to Gil-galad. So I don't think he'd be included. That said, Celeborn showing some of his views of the dwarves and whatnot. Yeah, that's typical Celeborn. Celebrimbor is a bit of a hothead, and I think it was a little soon, to an extent, to show his desire to live down the shame of his grandfather and father, to an extent. But on the other hand, I like that it's established early, but I think, can't it, have the insult be a little more overt, so that Gil-galad's statement of enough comes off as a bit more forceful, so that we get a sense of why they're following him, why he is High King and not Celebrimbor or Elrond or something. So I know it sounds like weird criticism. I just think, I know there's the phrase less is more sometimes, but sometimes more is more. And an overtly implied insult would be better for an audience, rather than talk of dwarves and then jumping to somehow there being an insulted Celebrimbor, as it makes Celebrimbor seem thin-skinned, needlessly so, where he's picking the fight rather than having the fight picked with him, when it should be the other person picking the fight with him. That aside, overall, I think this is a solid 2. It's a good beginning, and honestly, if this was an actual TV series, I would probably pick it up again for the second episode, and decide to watch at least up to episode 3 before making up my mind whether or not to continue, as I tend to watch all the way up to 3 episodes or 4 before I make up my mind.
That is a good policy.
But that's it, unless the trailers haven't scared me off before the first episode, which has happened a few times. The House of the Dragon trailers almost scared me off, as I was not overly taken with them. But then it was only until after 3 episodes that I decided I'll keep going, and the audience kept pushing me for it over on our channel. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button. Better yet, as though you were Eru Iluvatar raining down his wrath upon Numenor.